What's going on, everybody? Tim from Tier Fund Orbital. So today is going to be a short rundown walkthrough video for an install commission that I completed. This is an install on a Kennedy Custom Props custom one-off. This particular hilt is it's like loosely based on, in my opinion, it's loosely based on Cal Kestis's lightsaber from Fallen Order. It's got the very familiar shrouds that are a quintessential part of Cal's hilt. Technically, it's not Cal's; it was given to him. But anyway, the accuracy guys are going to jump all over me if I say that. So I've had a number of hilts come across my desk from Adam at Kennedy Custom Props, and every time I get one, I'm really blown away by the amount of time and work that Adam puts into some of these hilts. And this is the same for all of the sabersmiths that are out there. I don't think people really appreciate and realize how much planning and time can go into constructing a hilt that's, that doesn't just look like a piece of aluminum tubing, right? So this hilt is a little bit different in that the grip of the hilt is steel. And Adam, before he sent it to me, he did heat stain the steel. The emitter shrouds are aluminum, and they have been painted to give a heat stained look, but the grip itself is steel, and I always appreciate when I can see steel on a hilt. Obviously, heat staining steel, in my opinion, makes it look way more dynamic, way more interesting. So anyhow, it is a great hilt. It's a unique hilt, and it was a unique install. So I do want to talk a little bit in depth about the chassis and about how to use the hilt, because there are some intricacies with how to use the hilt. So we're going to go over all of that now. Let's come into Fusion first and talk about the chassis, and then we'll do a demo, right? All right, so here is the chassis that I did for this particular hilt. This is for the Fallen, I'm calling it the Fallen hilt from Kennedy Custom Props. I'm sure Adam has a specific name for it. So right off the bat, you will notice that this is a very long chassis. This is a long chassis for a very long grip. Given the way that the grip attaches to the upper part of the hilt, this is not a threaded grip. This is like it's held in place with a set screw. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to go with a removable with this particular setup. And that's fine. We just went with a static chassis. It is a very thin, very long, static chassis. So let's go over some of the greeblies. I've got some of my regular greebly work along both sides. And I did utilize, so I think I mentioned this before, this is like my all-in-one go-to greebly now for venting and NeoPixel shine through. It's very versatile. So anyhow, along this side of the chassis, I do have a 2020 NeoPixel strip that slides down this channel, and it goes the entire length of this vent here. Along this side, I did also put two holes for blinking LEDs. So there's a red and a blue LED that go in that hole. So we've got a lot of blinkies going on this chassis, a lot of detail on both sides. I've said this before, I really try to get every square millimeter full of something. It just, in my opinion, it takes rub and buff a lot better, and it just makes it look a little bit more like it's an actual functional part of a lightsaber, right? And that's it. Kennedy Custom Props along one side. I did put my logo right above the Proffie board. I did mention this in my last video. I really think that, especially with builds that are this thin, a kicked Proffie board is just the way to go, in my opinion. So we do have a Proffie board that's been kicked 30 degrees. It stays in this channel. You can get access to your SD card as well as your USB port if need be. This upper part of the chassis is blank because you will never see this. This goes up into the hilt, and this makes a connection, this nipple here, makes a connection to the crystal chamber. So this does also have an exposed, I guess it's exposed crystal chamber. I mean, it's inside of the hilt. So It does have a crystal chamber, and that is lit from the top and bottom as well. One of the things that I really appreciated about this build from Adam as well is a lot of the detail work that goes into not only the crystal chamber, but some of the external greeblies. A lot of this, if not all of it, is all machined by hand on a lathe, and I really appreciate stuff like that. So we'll go over that in detail when we go over the hilt. At the bottom here, I've got a cap for my 2-conductor speaker pogo PCB and a kill switch at the bottom. There is also a speaker pod in this particular build. So given that the internal diameter of this hilt is so thin, or thinner than a 28mm, I chose to go with a 28mm speaker, and that is in a speaker pod. The pommel on this particular install, or on this build, is also held in place with a set screw. It's not threaded. So again, I want to talk a little bit about how to use the hilt correctly, but I was able to get a speaker pod inside of that pommel, right? And that's it. So let's come up top and talk a little bit about this hilt. Okay, so here it is. This is the Fallen hilt from Kennedy Custom Props. Right off the bat, you'll notice that we've got a really nicely heat-stained steel grip. From what I understand, steel is not easy to work with. It's certainly not as easy as aluminum. It's a harder metal. So anytime I see steel, I really appreciate the craftsmanship that goes into turning a piece of steel like this. And also, obviously steel is heavier than aluminum, so it just makes it feel a little bit more substantial in your hand. So starting at the bottom, we do have a pommel. So this pommel is held in place with a black set screw here. The pommel is, I personally, I've been keeping the pommel on here and just taking the whole grip off. What you can run into with some of these set screw grip and pommel setups is if the clocking is not perfect and the pommel is not perfectly touching those speaker PCB pins, you'll get audio cutout. So you got to make sure that everything is put together correctly, and I'll talk about that in a second. The grip is removable, and it is held in place with this brass set screw here. Making our way up top. So these are those brass accents that I was talking about. So this brass switch holder, this is all custom machined. From what I understand, Adam also custom knurls and machines all of his threaded greeblies. Another really unique thing that I noticed about this too, this does have a crystal chamber on the inside, and the crystal chamber is also in brass, but it is held in place with a set screw that is hidden underneath this threaded greebly. And I thought that was a really unique touch. There is a black set screw in here that holds the crystal chamber in place. Just small details like that, I really appreciate, and that's a really subtle way to hide your set screws, right? 2 steel ball tactile switches serve as your buttons, and that's it, right? Making our way up, we do have those, shrouds. These are quintessential Cal Kestis shrouds that have been painted to give it a heat-stained look. This is a brass thumb screw, also custom machined by Adam. So really unique hilt, right? So let's talk about how to use this guy. So to get at your chassis, you want to unscrew that brass set screw. It is a tight grip. Slide the grip off. So here is the chassis. I did do a pass of pewter rub and buff on this guy just to help bring out some of the greeblies. So I say this with a lot of thin static chassis builds like this to the client. Try your best not to drop this hilt when the grip is off. It is very delicate, especially with this being so long. We don't want the chassis to break, right, while it's inside of the hilt. So just a disclaimer I like to tell people. 2 conductor speaker PCB is down here. There is a kill switch down here. And that's it, right? So to use the hilt, let's get a battery. Spring side is your negative. You want to take the flat part of your battery, rest it in that battery tray, hit that kill switch, and you will get an animation telling you that there's power and the hilt is on. You're not going to hear an audible cue because there's no speaker connected just yet. I've set up this 2020 NeoPixel strip as a sub blade. So there are 3 blades in this. The top and bottom light are their own blades, and then the middle animation is a 3rd blade. Around the other side, we've got our 2 blinking LEDs. So we've got a red and a blue blinking LED. And that's it, right? So you will not hear anything. Obviously, the hilt is on now, but you won't hear anything because the grip's not on. So once you get your battery in, you want to put your grip on. So you want to just slide the grip all the way up. So this is how I've been utilizing this set screw, right? There are 2 holes. There's a regular sized hole, and there's like a kidney-shaped hole on this side. I've been using the kidney-shaped one. Put your grip all the way on until it stops. You don't want to force this up too much. I've been putting it just maybe past the halfway mark in that kidney-shaped hole, and you're good to go. So then you want to put your brass knurled set screw on. Make sure that's good and tight, and then you're good. Let's come down to the bottom. So here we go. There is that lit animated crystal chamber. So there's a NeoPixel on the top and bottom of that crystal. Let's see what else we got. So if you are looking at these switches, the bottom switch is your main, top is going to be your off. Twist to activate, twist to deactivate are all on. I really miss not being able to like really whip a blade around. I'm gonna put a demo blade in this, but I gotta be, obviously I gotta be careful. I don't wanna like put a hole in the ceiling or anything. Okay, so this is a 1-inch blade holder. You wanna make sure your knurled thumb screw is loose. There is a blade plug that Adam included in this order as well. I will ship that obviously in the blade holder or in the emitter. Loosen that brass set screw. Make sure the blade is resting on those PCB pins, and then tighten your set screw and you're ready to go. See what else we put on here.
I'm Cal Kestis.
There we go. One more.
You want me to put the hammer down?
All right, before I break my ceiling fan. So that's it. A quick rundown on an install I just completed on a Kennedy Custom Props Fallen themed hilt. This was a really interesting hilt to work on. I really appreciate, again, like when hilts are one-offs and handmade, I really appreciate the unique aspect of that. I also like, being able to spread my wings as far as chassis design goes, right? So to the client, thank you very much for your patience. To the viewers, everybody, thank you so much for watching. And with that being said, may the force be with you always.